How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a slightly different type of video, another story time video, just talking through a little bit about something that I've done related to cars. I wanted to talk you through my travelling around Europe where I drove 2,536 miles from the UK all the way down to Slovenia and back up to the UK. I didn't just do that in a really short space of time, I did it over a couple of weeks, but I'll tell you the story as we go. I just thought a few people on Instagram asked me to do it and a few people on YouTube as well, so I just thought I'm away this week, actually on holiday, and I don't have much time to make a big video, so a story time video kind of suits well. Hopefully you guys find it as interesting as I found it fun to go on. Probably not possible, but you know what I mean. Topic of the week this week, slightly related to cars. Where in the world would you most like to drive? I really enjoyed driving in Switzerland around some of the mountain roads, as I'll get onto in a moment, but I think if I could drive anywhere, I'd like to drive the Nurburgring again. I know that's a really boring one, but it was so good, and hopefully we'll go later this summer, but more on that in the future. Where would you like to go driving? Let me know in the comments down below, have a chat about it. Remember to like, comment, subscribe if you like these kinds of videos, but without further ado, let's get into my travelling. So let's go back to the absolute beginning. In 2017, around about July, one of my good friends, George, my girlfriend, Emily, and I decided that we were going to go and travel around Europe. We decided the easiest way to do it was to drive my car, which was a Skoda Fabia Estate at the time, which is an excellent car for traveling as a young person because it's big and useful and does good miles per gallon. Take it all around Europe, go as far as we could and wherever we really wanted to go for 2 and a bit weeks. That was after we actually booked flights to Stuttgart to hire a car, but then realised that hiring a car at 21, 22 years old is ridiculously expensive, and so we had to cancel our flights and decide to book a ferry instead. So the time came about a month later and we drove to Dover, where we had sort of the fast, easy access to the ferry, which I would definitely recommend getting because you're first on and first off. You don't have to deal with the queues either side. It's super chilled. We took the ferry from Dover to Dunkirk, which isn't the normal route. Normally you go to Calais, but we went to Dunkirk and drove from there to Ypres, which is an amazing town, city maybe, I don't actually know, has a insane history with World War I stuff. So we went to sort of World War I battlefield place and went to a really cool World War I museum, and it has some amazing beer. So that's also great. Also, it's not that far from Dunkirk, so it's quite an easy opportunity to learn how to drive on the wrong side of the road, or at least the wrong side for us here in the UK. So following Ypres, same day we drove on to Luxembourg city, where we camped literally just outside the city. It was really weird. It was like the countryside was right here, right next to the city. It was just really strange. There was no sort of middle ground. There was no suburbs and then countryside. It was just city countryside. Very strange, but maybe it was just that bit that we were staying in. We had some great food in Luxembourg, took no pictures, hence I haven't got any for you. We set up our tent, which we thought was really easy, but little did we know what was going to happen literally the day afterwards. And then the day after, we get on the motorway and drive to Strasbourg in France, which is a beautiful place. We walked around it for a little while, had lunch there, that kind of stuff. Good opportunities to kind of rest, do a bit of shopping, get some stuff together so that we can carry on with the journey. Having done Strasbourg, we drove from there in France down to Titisee in the Black Forest in Germany, where we were planning on going to this insane water park. This is the first opportunity I had to drive some really nice roads. I'd previously just been doing motorway driving and it was a little bit boring. We got to the Black Forest and the roads are just tight twisties, just all really nice. I wish at that point I'd been driving a better car than a 1.2 Skoda Fabia Estate, but then we wouldn't be able to fit the tent, etc. in the car, so who knows, let's have like an RS4 or something. So we went to this water park, and honestly I cannot explain to you, particularly those of you in the UK, we have nothing like it. It was just sick. So it has like 3 areas. So one area is a bar sort of swimming pool, which is about the size of an entire football stadium, and then it's got a spa which is about the size of a football stadium, and then it's got rides and slides and that kind of stuff, also the size of a football stadium, if not bigger. And at this place they had one area that was just being built, so it was like a bit of a construction site, but we were still allowed to go on the slides in it. It was just sick. We'd never get it in the UK. It would always have some kind of health and safety thing that would stop us from doing it. But so then we went and found a nice campsite for the evening, or at least a campsite that we thought was nice. It was on a really great hill overlooking this insanely big lake, and there was just like, it was just bliss. It was perfect, great weather, etc. We drive up this hill to get to our parking spot. We start putting up the tent and we realize that the whole campsite is just rock, so we can't get the pegs into the ground. What makes it even worse is about 2 minutes into making the tent, it starts to rain, and not just like trickle rain. I'm talking like thunder, lightning, coming from the heavens kind of rain. And if you've ever put up a tent before, if you're putting it up in the rain, you've already lost the battle. And if you're putting it up with rock, there was no battle in the first place, you just lost. So yes, George and Emily may have had a slight sense of humour failure at the time, and it ended up being Emily wearing my waterproof because she hadn't brought one, me out in the rain, having put the tent up properly, with them obviously, making curry on a little sort of camping stove thing from a tin, whilst they kind of huddled in the tent like, what are we doing here? It's literally day 2. But that's the kind of stuff that I love about these holidays. So obviously I didn't mention, but we were planning on tenting some of the stuff and Airbnb-ing the rest. And this was day 2 and we're in this tent and it's just a dire situation. But I found it absolutely hilarious and kind of fun in a maybe morbid kind of way, but it was just a fun situation to be in. I mean, it was fun until we woke up the morning afterwards and it had been raining all night. The tent was soaked, literally just ruined, and we're just there like, okay, what are we doing? Fortunately, got an amazing call from my grandparents who work on a campsite in Switzerland in the summer, and they said that we could go there and stay in one of the mobile homes, which was just the most blissful thing to hear. So to capitalize on this cheery moment, I drove to Lidl, bought some food for breakfast, and I also bought Emily a very fetching pink poncho waterproof thing that she proceeded to wear for the rest of holiday. Now those tight, twisty, amazing roads around the Black Forest are stunning, and they're even more stunning when you're driving them in the wet. I don't know why, it was just like the coolest thing to drive in. So we packed up the tent in the rain, it was all ruined, threw it in the back of the car, threw everything, all of our sodden clothes, etc. into the car and drove to Switzerland. And this was quite a nice drive. It had a lot of sort of mountainous style roads to get there and just a load of like nice twisties, etc. It's quite just a nice feeling driving from Germany to Switzerland. It was the first time also that we had to actually stop at a border and get a sticker in the window of the car. So you have to have like some kind of pass to be allowed to drive on motorways in Switzerland, so we had to go get one of those. And they always look quite cool, so it shows that you're well travelled, but also they're quite expensive, so depends how you feel about it. We drove through Switzerland. Switzerland has probably some of the best roads in Europe, and I don't mean just in terms of pretty roads, I mean the actual tarmac itself is excellent. It just is really good. In the UK, a bit of cold, a bit of winter, suddenly there's potholes everywhere and it's Armageddon. In Switzerland, the roads are just perfect. Whether it's snowing, raining, sunny, whatever it is, the roads are pristine, or at least from my experience. So we drive to this place called Interlaken and we stay in this absolutely stunning mobile home next to a lake. It's just one of the most beautiful places. I've been there quite a few times. It's in a very mountainous region, so you can see mountains all around, and all of the roads around there to drive along are just so good. What was really good about it is because we're staying in a mobile home, we could take all the stuff out of the car, put it into the mobile home, and just do a bit of driving and enjoy the car being not so weighed down by everyone's stuff. So we did some great stuff while we were in Switzerland, sort of all the classic stuff. We went hiking, restauranting, went to some really cool stuff. It was just, if you go to Switzerland, there are some amazing places you go to. I can recommend the Autobahn Valley. It's really, really pretty. I can recommend going up Mannlichen. It's one of the big mountains. Doing rodelbahning, which is like the equivalent of skeleton, but on a sort of metal thing. Trotty biking, which are these little scooter things that you take down mountains, and they seem super dangerous and super sketchy, but they're fun. And we did some of those things. We also went to some really cool waterfalls inside a mountain. Yeah, just everything about Switzerland was really good. But all good things do come to an end, and we had to leave our really cozy mobile home and head on to our next location. And though I was sad about leaving the mobile home, I was actually quite happy very shortly afterwards, because we literally drove the best driving road, I would say, of the entire holiday. We drove what's called the Grimsel Pass, which is part of the Grand Tour route. So it's driving through some insane, when I say insane, I mean just ridiculous mountain roads where the 1.2 litre engine was just not enough. You couldn't climb the mountain fast enough. I remember this point where a bus kind of drove out of the way of us and I had to climb this bit of mountain and I was just in the way of all these cars behind me. These diesels just coming around me like, what is this slow guy doing? Because it just wouldn't climb the mountain. It was just so steep. You get to the top, suddenly you're in snow, driving through a really snowy sort of ski village, then you're back down again out of the mountain, going down these roads where if you go wrong, you're falling to your death. And then you come up another mountain and do the same all over again. It was just incredible. And then when you come out of this final descent, you're basically driving down to this motorway which continues to go down, and you end up driving into Italy, straight into Lake Como. So you've gone from insane snowy mountains to Lake Como in the sun in like 30-degree heat. It was the most ridiculous day. I'd have liked to have stayed at Lake Como a little bit more because apparently it's amazing to drive around, and we did get a little bit of a sightseeing tour around the lake because we went the wrong way, but we had to carry on and go through to Milan. Now, driving in Milan is an interesting experience for anyone who has ever driven a car. Lots of the roads are cobbled, so the car is just constantly making weird noises underneath you, and more importantly, every single car seems to have some kind of shunt or dink or anything on it to show that it's not a perfect car. I would hate to own an expensive car in Milan because I would be so scared of it getting ruined. And with no road markings and that kind of stuff in most places, you're literally just following other people and trying to work out what's going on. Luckily, we managed to make it to where we were going to park the car, and we parked up and stayed in our first Airbnb, which was really nice. It was kind of like a 1 room, 1 bathroom thing, but the bathroom was stunning, and I'm a big fan of bathrooms, and this one had a sick shower, so I was just loving life. Milan's a beautiful place. We went to the big Duomo thing and that Emmanuel shopping bit that no one can afford any clothes or anything from, and I had a pizza and did very Italian things basically. Having spent just a 1 night in Milan, we drove to Trieste on the Italian motorways, which again is an incredible driving experience. It's weird because they have minimum speed limits in lanes, which I think is sick. It means that if you're driving too slowly, the police can pull you over rather than driving too fast. Well, I suppose too fast is bad as well, but you get the idea. And people just don't take prisoners on Italian motorways. People were properly gunning it. It was just insane, and in 2 lanes and sometimes making their own lanes. It was just nuts. So we get to Trieste, and basically my uncle on my dad's side moved there when he married his wife, who's Italian. They've got a bunch of land, but most importantly, she, for fun, has 23 cats for some reason, and they are the cutest things in the world. And I love cats, I love dogs. She looks after people's dogs and has a shed load of cats, and we tented in their garden for some reason, which was an awful idea actually, because when the sun came up in the morning, it was like a sauna inside this tent. So we'd be up at like 6 a.m. and then just go straight in, play with some cats, play with some dogs, yada yada yada, and then do the rest of our day. So the reason why we went there is specifically because 1, you get a bit of creature comforts being with family, and 2, it's right by Venice. So we spent a whole day of just walking around Venice, and it's a stunning place. The one thing I'd say about Venice, if you're going there, it's probably really good if you want to do like a nice romantic trip or whatever, but spending the full day there and kind of walking around, etc., my feet really did hurt by the end. It was a long day. Also, if you want to go into any of the churches and stuff, you have to be wearing suitable clothing. So I was wearing shorts and a vest, and they definitely weren't suitable. Emily was wearing, like, I can't even remember, but maybe it was like a dress or something like that. Again, she needed to have like a long skirt or whatever to be allowed to go into these churches, etc. So if you want to go into those and do some historical stuff, dress appropriately. For us, it was like 35 degrees. There was no way we were going to wear anything more than what we were wearing at that point in time. We also went to one of the worst restaurants in the world, by the way, so be careful about what restaurants you choose. They were just not very nice people, and it was really not very nice food. But as an overall, Venice is an incredible place. I know I've just complained a lot about lots of different things, but it's an incredible place. And in the evening, we went back to Trieste and went to just a random pool party where barely anyone spoke English, but it was just, again, really, really cool. Then we drove from Italy through to Slovenia the day afterwards and went to Lake Bled, which is another amazing place to drive. We got to Slovenia and didn't realise they have like a similar to Switzerland kind of motorway toll, and so we almost got done for that, didn't luckily, and drove around down to Lake Bled. At the moment, it's a very touristy place. I think a lot of people are going there, so we were there and there were just like, it was the first time on the holiday we felt like we'd been proper tourists because everyone was a tourist. We camped in the biggest campsite I've ever seen. I think it literally had like 4 or 5 different washing places and toilets and all that kind of stuff. It was just insanely big. It was also in the middle of nowhere, so at night you could look up and see just the stars, and it was just stunning. The weather was amazing. We spent another full day at the lake. We went out on sort of kayaks, that kind of stuff, and then we went to try and find this gorge or something with amazing, I don't know, I don't really know what I was going to. All I knew was that I was driving there, and the sat nav took us on some really back roads. So we'd gone from like civilization through to these country roads that tractors were driving along, and it was just dirt and mud and stones and that kind of stuff. So be wary that when you're driving around places like that in Slovenia, you might suddenly end up on some dirt track as part of Google Maps. So then we drove from Slovenia to Munich, where George wanted to see one of his old friends. In Munich, we were staying in an Airbnb, and it was just a beautiful Airbnb, actually, really, really nice. It was kind of like a 2-bedroom apartment on the bottom floor of a big block of apartments, really close to the city centre. And one thing I'd say is that in Munich, you have to have, again, another sticker to show that your car fits the environmental regulations. And so it took us ages to actually find a garage where you can get that sticker. But in the end, we found it. It didn't cost very much, I don't think, and we were able to drive around in Munich. What I thought was sick about Munich was there were just some insane cars. I'm talking like Porsches and BMWs and Audis and just German cars that were sick for days. There was just so many of them. They were all over the place. G-Wagons, 911s, whatever you wanted, they were all there. Looking away from cars, the food was insane as well. I had this insane knuckle of pork. It must have been about yay big. And it came with like a dumpling looking thing and then a massive sort of tankard thing of beer. It was, yeah, great place. Stayed in Munich another night. Day afterwards we went to our second ridiculous water park. It was the same company as the one that we went to before, but slightly older, and the place again was ridiculous. Had some really cool slides, and it has the world's longest indoor slide, which I proceeded to do a couple of times with George. It was just, yeah, a lot of fun. Then we did our longest drive, and I think this drive has actually set me up quite well for driving around the UK. I actually honestly think that the drive must be about as big as the UK. We drove from Munich to Cologne, and it was about 5 or 6 hours on Autobahns doing like 110 miles per hour in the Skoda, which is definitely not what it's supposed to be able to do. We were on this just no speed limit bit of Autobahn, and I was like, right, I'm flooring it. 110 miles per hour. Just, I didn't think the car could go that quick with all the stuff in it as well. And it was just like shaking around and you're like properly scared. And the worst part is you're doing 110 miles per hour and then some family in a Vauxhall Mariva or something come past you at like 130 miles per hour and you're like, how, what? And then there are other times as well where you're doing like 90, 100 miles per hour. And I just remember this SLS Black Edition just coming flying past us. We were doing 100, so it must have been doing at least like 150, 160. A BMW X5M, I remember following it along and just blitzing past us. These cars are just flying along the Autobahns. So we stayed over the night in Cologne, and I know rose tinted lenses and all that kind of stuff, but again, another really pretty place. And we went from Cologne to one of my highlights of the trip, if not my highlight of the trip. We drove all the way to the Nurburgring. If you've never been before, the roads actually driving to the Nurburgring are pretty cool as well, and the cars around there are obviously quite cool because everyone wants to drive the ring. And so you're driving on these really cool roads, some really great cars around you. Obviously we're in the Skoda Fabia Estate, so nothing particularly interesting there, but getting to look at some great other cars. When we arrived, there'd been a crash, and so it was about an hour or two before we actually got out onto the track. But I somehow managed to get out on the track with George and Emily and all of our camping equipment and just drove around the track. The rules are that obviously you stay on the right hand side if you want to get overtaken, so we just stayed the whole lap on the right hand side and just rolled around. So it wasn't worth jeopardising the entire holiday for the sake of one fast lap around the ring, which wouldn't have been fast because the car was so slow. If you've never done the ring before, I'm going to try and go later this summer, potentially start of autumn, so I'll let you guys know when I'm going and you can potentially come with me. It's an amazing experience and one that I would definitely recommend to everyone, but just be careful, follow the rules, all the good stuff. So after the Nürburgring, we drove through the Netherlands back to Ypres, actually, in Belgium, where we pretty much started our holiday and stayed over in a campsite there. It was just a really nice place to be, we found, and because of the beer and the great food and the culture and the history, it was just a great place to kind of end the holiday. So yes, that was our last night in Belgium. We then just drove back through to Dunkirk, saw a little bit of the beach, and then got on the boat back to the UK, again with the fast track thing, so first on the boat, first off the boat, and just drove back through to home and ended our holiday. 2,536 miles in total we did from home to home. It was just one of the best experiences of my life, and if I can recommend anything to anyone ever, it is to take a driving holiday. I would suggest you don't make any real plans. You kind of have a general idea of what you want to do, but don't have plans that are just set in stone that you need to hit and you need to go every single day to this different place. Make sure that you've got enough flexibility built in there that you can take advantage of the fact that you're driving a car around and can just at any point decide to turn left or right. We very nearly randomly decided to go to Prague partway through. We decided not to in the end, but we had the opportunity to simply because we drove our car rather than interrailing or whatever. I also quite enjoyed the camping, Airbnb-ing and caravanning style of holiday as well, but obviously different people like different things, and we wouldn't have been able to bring a tent if we had a smaller car. So if you've got a big car, definitely go for a tent. If not, then maybe just Airbnb-ing it would be quite fun. The key thing as well as always is that if you're going on any kind of nice driving holiday, bring friends that you like. Simple. Had an excellent time going with George and Emily, and I would definitely do it again. And I was wondering if you guys might like to see it again. If I went on another driving holiday, did a really big one and just kind of drove around, did something like seen through glass but nowhere near as long because I haven't got anywhere near as much money, I suppose. Would you guys like to see that? I think it'd be quite fun. I have to find the time off work, etc. But I'd like to do it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this waffle of however long this video ends up being. If you did, remember to like, comment and subscribe for more weekly car content. Back to kind of the normal content next week. This is literally just because I'm super busy going on holiday this week, working on a kid's camp, doing charity work, etc. If you want to see me drive around the Nurburgring, the link will be in the description as well as on the iCard above. But as always, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.